So once again, good afternoon, everyone. I am Anuj Gupta, your host for the day, and I'm associated with PJMT since a couple of months now. And that's a great initiative that PJMT Prem Jan. I'm just giving a full name is a Prem Jan Memorial Trust, and they have taken this great initiative that Green Gurukul series. So this is the third edition that we are. This is the third edition that we are organizing today. I request to all the people, please mute yourself who are in the panelists right now. Great, thank you. So this is the third edition that we are organizing today, and we are happy to host you. And today's session is organizing with the support of D2O Learning that I am belonging to, and the lovely professional university from Punjab.
Actually, वहाँ पे 10 अमृता और आ रहे हैं ना, तो मैं मुझे identify.
Yatin ji, can you please mute yourself? Yeah, perfect. So that's a brief about for the session. The Green Gurukul is like it's a communication with the interaction with the students. So today's we are having people from lovely professional university as well as from other colleges. So it would be great if you are from different college, please put in the chat box from which college or university you are, so that we will get to know more about your college, and we will try to organize a session next with your college. And so today's session, we will have an interaction with our very great panelist speakers, Mr. Ashish and Mr. Gaurav. But before that, I would be happy to invite one special person that we have, Miss Payal Jan, because she is the founder trustee of Prem Jan Memorial Trust. I'm just giving a brief about her. She is a founder trustee of Prem Jan Memorial Trust, and Payal careers its missions to create awareness and advocacy about the environment, with focus on sustainability through education, identifying future leaders who can catalyze global development. As a crusader for the environment, her belief is to inspire the next generation to follow the path leading to a greener earth. Her passion for sustainability and love for Mother Nature reflecting through use of natural yarns, vegetable dyes, handloom textiles, hand block prints, indigenous embroideries, and sustainable work ethics and practices. So I request to Ms. Payal Jan, please come forward and just address our guests.
Thank you, Anuj, and I'd like to welcome everybody today from Prem Jan Memorial Trust. This is our third session of the Green Gurukul. Just to give you a little background, the Green Gurukul idea emerged when we were talking to our student community of Green Ambassadors. And I would like to invite students from lovely professional university also to become Green Ambassadors with us. We have Sakhi here as one of our Green Ambassadors today, who will be talking to you, interacting with our eminent panelists and being part of this session. This is a 3 to 6 month program where we take on students from various universities and give them a platform to interact with industry leaders, to understand how the professional world works, what, to prepare them in some way for what is yet to come once they graduate. So this conversation of Green Gurukul started with our Green Ambassadors when they felt they need a platform to be able to interact and ask their questions directly from industry leaders, which never happens when you're simply listening to webinars or panel discussions, which most of you have been doing a lot of over the last 1.5 years, thanks to the pandemic. I want to specially thank Ashish Jain, who is family to me and has been part of this journey with Spectral first, then AECOM, and now Prem Jan Memorial Trust. And I would like to welcome Gaurav. Thank you for being part of this. It's wonderful to have both of you. We see a lot of youth and power here and some amazing work you're both doing. So I'm sure our students are waiting to hear from you. I want to say thank you to IGBC for constantly supporting us, for being our partners in everything we do. To lovely professional university, this is specifically for your students, and we're grateful for this association. We hope we can continue having many more in the future. D2O Learning, Anuj, thank you for being our Sutradhar for the Green Gurukul. Sandeep Narang, who was part of this conversation, I'm sure he is here today, and I will never miss mentioning him because he is the one who started the whole student initiative in PJMT, and we are very grateful to him. Our PJMT team, our board of governors, and all our founder members. Thank you very much, Anuj. Back to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's a great to hear from you about the sessions and about the initiative that PJMP is taking. Thank you so much. So next, let's move forward. We have a couple of college representatives from lovely professional university. So I request Miss Amrita Shukla. She's a HOD Architectural Department. Ma'am, are you there? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Amrita ji, if you can just address the students and the other people.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Premchand Memorial Trust and D2O Learning for this unique platform for our students to learn and ask questions about green building and sustainability. I would also urge the students to take the advantage of this opportunity and learn from the experts in the panel. To conclude, I would like to remind everyone that we do not inherit this earth from our ancestors, but we have borrowed it for our children. It's our prime responsibility to follow up all the parameters and definitions defined by the sustainability so that we can carry forward our Mother Earth or the planet Earth into a.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for a great address for the students and supporting from the LPU. Thank you so much. Next, we have Miss Atiksha also. She's an IGBC AP and assistant professor from lovely professional university. So, ma'am, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. The green concepts and techniques in the building sector can help address national issues like water deficiency, energy efficiency, reduction in fossil fuel use for commuting, handling of consumer waste, and conserving natural resources. Most importantly, these concepts can enhance occupant health, productivity, and well-being. These words taken from the IGBC manual perfectly sum up the need as well as the importance of green buildings in today's day and time. So thank you to the panelists for enlightening and answering our students' questions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Atiksha ji, for a very nice address for the today's session. Now the time is here, and I would like to invite our panelist and the green ambassador also. But first, I would like to invite our panelist, Mr. Ashish Shah. He is a partner of Aeon Integrated Building Design Consultant LLP. He has 18 years of comprehensive work experience in the field of green building, sustainability, BIM, interior design, and architecture for projects across different countries, including India, USA, Europe, and Middle East. As a thought leader in sustainability, he has presented several papers at various international and domestic forums, and conducted various lectures on sustainability at Premier Institute of India. I welcome Mr. Ashish Jan. Thank you so much for being a part of this sessions, and we look forward to have your thoughts and ideas on the various questions that we will have during the session.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Gaurav Vasudev. He is a managing director of GAPS GAPS, a group of GAPS engineering services, and which drives engineering services and specialized products in HVAC and indoor air quality. Gaurav has developed his 22 plus years of commercial and business experience in HVAC industry. Gaurav has done mechanical engineering with specialization in production engineering. He is also ASHRAE certified professional for clean room applications. He is an active and recognized member of ASHRAE, SIE, FSAI, and ISLE. Gaurav is continuously working with government authorities for upgrading the ventilation norms in Indian subcontinent. Also, he is actively involved with the student fraternity, and through his knowledge and motivational talks given career direction to many students. So thank you so much, Mr. Gaurav, for being a part of this sessions, and we would be happy to have your thoughts and ideas during the session.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. We
Thank
look
you.
forward to it.
Now we have one more that green ambassador that we have. Firstly, before taking the question, I'd like to invite our green ambassador, Miss Sakhi Gulati, and Miss Sakhi will. Can you please share your what your takeaways from the that PJMP that initiative that has been taken, and the green ambassador initiative that has been taken? What is your take and what you would like to share with your friends and colleagues which they have joined today?
Good afternoon, sir. Sure, I would love to let you know about my experience with Premchand Memorial Trust. So I'm a fifth year architecture student of APJ School of Architecture and Planning, Greater Noida. I joined Premchand Memorial Trust when I was in my fourth year. My experience up till now has been great. The changes that I've observed in myself have been in leaps and bounds. So we get to participate in events through assignments, we pitch our ideas, and through discussions, we develop them into briefs or posters or infographics. Also, we get to converse with celebrity architects through these interesting sessions. I came here with a keen interest in sustainable designing. And after getting to know about a lot of architects, that passion and interest to come up with sustainable design solution has definitely increased. Also, the members of this organization have been very, very understanding and always available for discussions, be it Payal ma'am or Devashish sir or Yatin sir. They've been very supportive. So, okay, now. Do I have to come up with the question right now, sir?
Thank you so much, Saki. First of all, thank you for being a part of PJMT, that Green Ambassador team, and we are happy to have you. It would be great if you
Welcome, sir.
for the questions, because I believe I am not getting the question that thing. But yes, it would be great if you can just little loud or just please keep your microphone near to you. So
Sir, am I audible now?
yeah, you are audible perfectly fine. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So now I would like to invite. We have I just got a one message, like we have Mr. Abid Hussain also, who is a MEP consultant and ASHRAE president. So thank you so much, Mr. Abid, for joining this session of Green Gurukul, and we are happy to have you here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now like move to Sakhi again. Sakhi, it would be great now you can open your questions. Now let's start the Q&A round with our panelists, and let's start. What are the questions for our speakers?
Sure, sir. So my question was for Gaurav, sir. So now that theses are on our head, as I'm a fifth year student, so we have to come up with the most practical designs. So can we know certain ways to reduce energy consumption and negative impact on the environment and yet increasing human comfort?
Okay, so we all have seen the times when air conditioning used to be a luxury thing for everybody. So we have been seeing the years. Probably in your childhood also, air conditioning was not the prime thing what you were getting everywhere. But now, more than a luxury, it becomes a necessity of time. And with that necessity, everybody is trying to make comfortable, be it your colleague, families, friends, everybody. So we are just trying to create a kind of environment where we can sit comfortably under 21 to 25 or 26 degrees. And somewhere we are forgetting that we are adding a lot of carbon footprints outside, which is trying to be a raised concern by many people, and your question is also speaking on the same lines. There are many ways, in ASHRAE also we start thinking how we can make a kind of better environment for people who are actually using the air conditioning system. And there was something, before we go down to the design or making a more practical approach, there was something which has been started by Ahmedabad chapter of ASHRAE, which was 1 degree challenge. So 1 degree challenge was simply making you understand that, okay, if you are running your air conditioning system at 25 degrees, you can run your air conditioning system at 26 degrees, which will save somewhere about 15 to 20% of energy saving. So just by increasing 1 degrees and switching on a simple ceiling fan along with it is helping you to reduce your power consumption. And the moment you have the power consumption reduced, you are reducing the carbon footprint altogether. Now we are coming down to the new project design, or how we can make it more practical. One of the things what we need to look at, we need to decide the comfort temperature. The comfort temperature is not 20 or 19 degrees. The comfort temperature is somewhere about 23 to 26 degrees or 27 degrees. The moment you raise the temperature line from 19 degrees to 23 or 24 degrees, definitely your design is going to have a less tonnage required. The moment you have a less tonnage required, you will have a less energy consumption. Secondly, we need to see what we can use in our interiors, which is more natural, which is not adding up to the heat load content of the area. And we don't have to look at the peak, the design condition should not be at the peak lines of June or July couple of days. When we do the heat load calculation, we pick up a worst day scenario of let's say July 21st or June 21st at 12 in the afternoon. That actually make us adding a lot of more tonnage to our system. Whereas if we decide to go with a design which is year along 9 or 8 months sustainability with the lesser temperatures to be handled outside to inside, I think design can be a little more effective. I would like to ask my colleague Ashish ji, because he's the one who designs a lot of green projects and all. So if we can add something to it, if I'm missing something, Ashish ji.
Yeah, sure. I think this is quite interesting because achieving energy efficiency at a cost of human comfort doesn't make sense. And one of the very natural ways and the best way to me seems like which somehow is ignored in many buildings today also is we have 300 days of daylight in our country. We are blessed with that, and not utilizing that properly is also to me seems to be a crime in our country. But if we use it more judicially, combined with what we are doing in our own office, I'll quote that example, is that we don't switch on any artificial light till 5:30 in the evening. So it's all completely daylit. So one is that definitely we are benefiting on the energy consumption. Number two, the amount of comfort that people feel in daylight, you won't feel that in artificial light. Also, there's a lot of studies being done, and research has also shown that people living in the natural environment are better placed in terms of the health, also visual comfort, everything. So one is definitely use of natural light. Number two, as Gaurav also said, that increasing the temperature combined with the fans is also making a lot of sense. Again, in our office, we are maintaining 27 degrees centigrade temperature of air conditioning combined with HVLS fans is giving fantastic results. People are comfortable. Our energy bills are, very less. So I think these are some of the ways by which we can definitely reduce our consumption without compromising on comfort.
Thank you so much.
Rightly mentioned by the Gaurav ji and the Ashish ji. Thank you so much, both the panelists, for pointing various points on the energy efficiency and the comfort. That is very important. Any other questions, Sakhi, from your end?
So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sakhi, for taking up questions. So now I request to all the attendees that they have joined today. If you are coming across any questions related to the sustainability, any career in the sustainability, what is the future, you are free to ask the questions to our panelists. So please put your questions in the Q&A tab, and we will take your questions during the session. So if you have any questions, please put in the Q&A tab. So we have received some of the prior questions from the various students from 4th year of BArch. So first question I would like to ask Mr. Ashish. Like Mr. Ashish, there is one question from Isha and Janvi from BArch 4th year LPU. How can we encourage a sustainable design through the social norms? And how does a single sustainable design action influence others? So can you please some highlights on this?
Sure. In fact, one of the very facts that the whole sustainability movement, when it got started, somehow the major focus has always been on the environmental sustainability. But one of the, rather, I would say, few main pillars of the overall concept of sustainability talks about environmental, social, economic, and also the governance to an extent. What's happening now is that there is definitely a shift. I won't say shift exactly, but there is also a growing concern over the social issues when we talk about sustainability. One of the very good examples that we have seen over the last few months or past year because of COVID, there's a lot of growing concern about the wellness and health issues in the building, which is directly associated with the social impact. So people uh, are actually talking about these issues in the buildings, and they want to do something better to implement these elements. Now, one of the initiatives which is also coming from the investing background, I would say, not the norms background, there are investments which talk about the overall sustainability, ESG ratings and everything, which actually takes an element of social into account. If your organization is taking good care of people, the overall, your neighbors, your society in general, those are the things which are being actually assessed for making investments in the company. So yes, there is a growing area, and there are norms being coming in that area as well. And I think that's the way we can address the sustainability in a more overall perspective.
Thank you so much. I think so. This like satisfy the questions. So, Nike, now I have another questions that I would like to ask our next another panelist, Mr. Gaurav. So, there's a question from Rhythm. Why is sustainable development so often associated with protecting the environment? So, what's your takeaway on this?
Okay, so, I just go back a couple of years, okay, like 1 decade or 2 decades or something like that. That times, as I said, air conditioning was not the requirement of people. So we used to have all natural resources. If you go down to Rajasthan, they have mud houses, and they used to have a clay coating on the walls and all that. So to keep naturally sustained temperatures inside. But now when we start speaking about sustainability on air conditioning, that usually connecting and taking you back to those 20, 30 years back, what we used to have. Now we are taking everything, more artificially. First thing which comes in mind, that takes us to the design conditions. Second, as Ashish rightly mentioned, that when we are making a design, we are making a crime of not using the daylight for 300 days. That's again, whatever you save, be it's light, be it's air conditioning, be it's electricity, be it's anything, that is at the end is saving your environment only. If I have to produce more electricity for my office, if I have to have a low temperatures in my office, I have to consume electricity. For using electricity or producing electricity, we had to go back to either coal plants or to other ways of producing electricity, which is again adding a lot of carbon footprint. That is, using or misusing our natural resources. So whenever we start speaking of sustainability, we need to be self-sustained. So the buildings has to be self-sustained. The moment we have self-sustained buildings and self-sustained people, I think we will try and save the environment for future generations. I think these things does not come over the years. This takes decades to show up. I sometimes I take an example of the Harit Kranti, which has started way back in 1980s. There, everybody want to increase the production of grains. They started using urea, and I think a lot of people from Punjab understand what was the meaning of Harit Kranti. At that time, the urea has started increasing the production, but later After 30 years, everybody realizes that it is leading to the cancer. Now everybody is starting talking about the organic food. So this is how the whole sustainable thing is going to be. We are going to protect the environment end of the day, which is given by the nature. If we are not producing anything which is not self-sustainable, we are going to use the natural resources, and those natural resources are going to be corrupted. And we all are facing, and we all are seeing the same thing. We have seen the global warming, the temperature which was rising 1 degree in 1 decade. Now it is raising within couple of years. So it's an alarming thing for us, alarming thing for the next generations. We are probably, if I speak about my age, we are on the mid generation now, and we have just another 2 to 3 decades to stay back on the earth. But the next generations is the goal. They are going to stay here for next 60, 70, 80 years, and we have to give them something. I don't have a clip of advertisement made by Tata organization I think couple of months back, which was quite a viral on social media, where they have given a lot of colors to adult people, and they wanted them to make some drawings, and they said, okay, you are back in your school days, draw whatever, but use it sensibly. And the next group was the students from a small nursery classes and all that. And when they arrived, you won't believe, they are left out only with some black colors or gray colors or something, and rest all colors has been used by adults by the time the next generation was coming in. So we are doing the same thing. We are using all those colors which is provided to us by nature, and we are leaving the gray and black thing for the students. And that is why I think PJMT is doing a great job of seeding a right thought in students' mind, so that they can at least protect the colors for the next generations which are going to come in. I hope I justified my answer. And if Ashish, if I'm missing something, you can add to it, please.
No, I think you have covered everything.
Yes, I think so, Gauravji, that you have covered on that example that you have quoted here. That was a great example, and that video was like a very nice. That was a very nice video, and it should be giving a very great message to all the people. So adding to this, the cup that we discussed about the daylighting, and we should put our AC on the 23 to 27 degrees Celsius and all. So one question is coming in our Q&A box that from Mr. I think so Kamlakan. So that person is asking, after moving to 27 degrees Celsius and using fan and using daylight as a baseline, now what can be done to go green? Let's say these three are regulated in our places, then what we need to move further? So what are the other initiative that we can take for go green? So I think Ashish, if you can take up this, and then Gauravji can also add on this.
Right. See, there are many things that can be done. If we really talk about achieving overall green or the environmental sustainability in any space, first of all, it depends on the type of space and the scale of that particular space also. If we go in a generalized manner, I think there's a lot to do with the kind of materials that you use inside the space, a lot to do the way we treat our water, the way we use our water, and the way we actually behave in a space also. So a lot of issues related to energy efficiency and comfort, we can actually help managing those by managing the behavioral pattern also of the occupants. Also, there's something called automatic controls in the building. Now, it's a human tendency that even though if the space is daylit and we don't have automatic controls, people tend to forget switching off the lights if those are not required. Automatic controls help us in managing that more automatically rather than manual mode, and that helps. So controls is important. That also adds smartness to the spaces. So it's more like a automated space control that you have. Materials of the space also matter a lot in terms of you know dealing with these challenges. For example, in an existing building scenario, again, one of the things that is not under the control of every building owner is to change everything. Glazing is there, your structure is there, you can't change all of that. Now with the existing glazing, there's an option, you can actually go for a solar control film so that your heat ingress is minimized. While you are taking the daylight in, there's a lot of heat also which comes in. To mitigate that, you can go for solar control films, which is what we also have used in many of our projects, and it really works well. It also reduces the amount of air conditioning you need. People are more comfortable. The type of lighting fixtures that you choose, type of air conditioning that you choose. So there are many things which are there available, even beyond going of using fans and daylight. And the list is long. We can use the way we want to use as per the space types.
Right. I think so. This is rightly mentioned, and I would like to, from my end also, if people would like to know more about like what are the green features we should use in the building, Mr. Ashish has covered most of the things. But yes, if you would like to going forward again, you can check the IGBC guidebooks. You can get from the IGBC website. Just go to IGBC.in and you will get guidebooks that will help you to know what are the things you can implement in your building. All right. So adding to this, we have another questions coming because we have various students have joined. So there's an anonymous question is coming. Sir, I have one question. What is the scope and career opportunities in sustainability? And what are the some specializations that we can take in master's sustainability? So the person is asking like, what is the scope and the future? So Mr. Gaurav, if you can just put highlights on this.
All right. So, it's very difficult for me to answer this question. Why? Because the opportunity is so endless, so endless. We start with water conservation and we can end up with indoor air quality. We can start saving on a compressor. We can start ending up to the automation. So this word of sustainable environment is endless. Anything which is adding a value to a house or to a building or to an environment is the future of for sustainable working out. We are looking for more and more engineers who want to design the building, who want to run the building in a sustainable manner. More and more natural resources need to be added up to it. So if somebody, again, my examples are more of a kind of couple of decades back, because we contain sustainability. We learned the sustainability from the designs what we had in previous generations and all. So if somebody is expert on kind of the clay coatings, that person has an opportunity today to merge it or club it together with the interior people, and they can do very good interior clay coatings, which can naturally make your environment either cool in summer or hot in winter. So this is an opportunity in upcoming area for students who are really want to get into sustainable environment and sustainable building. I have seen a lot of design made by Jan and Ashish sir and with their teams, where the buildings are net zero. And the net zero means we are not taking anything from outside. We are creating everything. We are generating everything inside that building. We are consuming the waste inside to create something productive for that building. So this is kind of environment we are looking at right now. And we need more students and visionary people who really want to do something in this area. And I think the colleges who are participants with us, they are the one who can actually tell students, and they can guide them that this is the area we are speaking about. You've spoken about IGBC, then we have GBC, then we have many other organizations who are trying to teach people about the green sustainable environments, and there they can pick up either a product or a design or a manufacturing or a supply chain management. So everything is a part of sustainable development today, and we can explore best for best for everybody who want to get into this area. Ashish ji, anything?
Just to add is that the question also included if what exactly should be covered in the master's studies when we look at sustainability. So the beautiful part of sustainability as a subject is that it doesn't really talk about any one discipline. So when you are a sustainability person or a consultant or a professional, you are expected to know every bit of the building design and construction. So be it the architecture part, be it mechanical, electrical, plumbing, landscape, goes to construction. So you will be expected by the people who you interact that you have to know everything. Now that takes us to what subject do we choose in sustainability masters if we really look at it. I think from that perspective, pick up the best interest area of yours where you feel you are more, because when you actually choose architecture, there's a limited perspective that we have in our minds to what exactly do we want and what exactly do we want to do. But after 5 years of study, you develop your interest in some areas, and some areas you find that this is not my cup of tea. So take up the best interest area of yours, go for the sustainability. Going for the masters for that particular subject will be better. Overall sustainability, if you think, there are courses like sustainability, sustainable architecture. Masters is there in renewable energy. Masters is there in energy efficiency. There are a lot many courses with different universities, but you can pick and choose the best area that finds your interest actually, because that's where you can actually do it much better.
Rightly mentioned by both the panelists, like on the sustainability career and what the master's field we have in India right now. Thank you so much. So the next questions we have.
Just one, sorry, just to add also, even the landscape area, right now we're working on many projects where even outdoor thermal comfort is becoming very important for project, especially in large scale development. So landscape itself is a very big area of focus in the sustainability overall. So doing masters in that area also could be a good idea. Computational fluid dynamics, there's a master's study available for that. So I think you have to choose the interest area, accordingly you can go for it.
True. The next question that we have, I would like to ask Mr. Gaurav, like what is the biggest weakness or area to be improved upon in the green building sector?
Okay, so the biggest weakness I find is to run the building. Okay, we design the best, we put the best product into that building, we have everything automized where the lighting will come when person is coming in, we have inverter based chillers, we have everything damn good available in the world putting in. But when it comes to the the operations, the guy who is just switching on and switching off doesn't know what he wants to do. The moment he will find a kind of alarm somewhere and he is not able to rectify, what he'll do, he'll bypass the alarm. So what was the use of putting so much of energy, money into that particular building when the person who's going to be there doesn't even know how to operate it? And that is the biggest weakness we have seen. We have seen buildings where, as DTO, you also have came across certain buildings where the building has, the platinum rating by IGBC, but when it has been checked up after 2 years, they were not even silver. So this is the condition. This is the biggest weakness. I would really try to highlight that if we are putting a good products in with the good and the best designs, we should maintain and run them to the optimized condition, not just for the sake of putting a product inside to get the licenses. So this is what I feel personally. I've been working in the ventilation industry from 22 years. I can quote another example. We supplied a kind of a fan for one particular project. It was duty standby, and after 5 years, they raised a complaint. It is not working. And when I gone there, I've seen the product. You won't believe there was a nest for pigeons inside. How would it work? When you're putting a mechanical product inside, you need to do a test run, and that was a smoke extract fan. And imagine if that building, unfortunately, have been through that emergency condition, those products would have never worked there. So it's very important. If we are putting up a best design, best product, we need to maintain and operate them to the best optimized design conditions. And we need to have a team who understands it and use it to the best of its availability.
Rightly mentioned, Gauravji, that the building performance is very, very important. Like initially, we make the building as per the bylaws and the standards, but after 2 years, what happens? The building performance matters. So we have to check each and everything as per the standards, and it should be performed very well. Then only it say the green building.
Yes, exactly.
So the another interesting question that we have received, I would like to ask Mr. Ashish, like how do you convince a client for a green building? Because I'm just shorting the question. How do you convince the client for a?
I've read through the question. So
yeah,
I think the simple answer is that, and that's the real time problem that we face every project, every client. The best way is that if you show them how does it help them in a quantified manner, they will be convinced. For example, there are a lot of, if you just go and tell them that, change your design or change this material specification, no one is going to hear you or get convinced. But if you show that by doing this is the change you can expect either in your operations or your capital cost, chances are they will accept it. And the good part again is that there are a lot of these computer simulation tools available today, which helps you identify the performance of the building beforehand. So even the things that we are talking about, going back to our own examples of reducing the AC temperature, a client, especially if you go to the hotelier and tell that you reduce your temperature, increase your temperature, they will say go out of the room, we don't have to do it. But if you show them that this is the difference is going to be there in your operational cost, and because of the reduction in the energy consumption, your system, the capital cost is reduced, they will better go for it, and they will actually help you in making the other team members convinced to go for it also. So I think the simplest way is, if you see it, you will believe it. You have to show in a quantified manner to the client.
rightly
I
mentioned.
hope it answers.
Yes, it answers. And like that point, that hotelier one that you quoted, that if we go for the hotel industry, if they do not play with the comfort of the people.
Absolutely.
So that's a very important point. So the next question that we have received from the LQ team, I would like to ask again, Mr. Gaurav, like what are the social benefits of sustainable development? So this is from Udit.
Thank you, Udit. It was a very valid and a very important question. What we had, I just mentioned in my previous discussions as well, that if we do something sustainable today, that is going to help our next generations, our grandchildren, our grandchildren. If we take a social responsibility of making environment safe, natural resources safe, I think that's the best thing what we can teach to our students. I've been traveling abroad a lot, and I've been meeting a lot of people in Europe and stayed there with them. What they do with their kids, they give them all social responsibilities, behaviors, from day one. They do not compromise on that. They absolutely no compromise. So same thing we need to put up to our students, to our kids, to our people around. If let's say I quote another example which has come across just 2 days back when I was doing a morning walk. There was a car and father and a kid. They just came out of the stadium after they completed their session or something, and uh, generally when you come out from that place you have to take left and take a U-turn and come back. This guy probably was in hurry or no, I actually have no idea. He took a right and started working opposite to the traffic coming in, just to save 5 minutes. He unknowingly feeding his kid with a kind of information that he can in future do the same thing. And this is something we are doing with our air conditioning as well. We are putting up our air conditioner at 20, 19, 18, to those temperatures, and making everybody understand that, okay, this is the comfort temperature we need to live in.
That's
And
bad for health. Doctors say
I
that.
know.
Doctors say that.
Doctors say that, but this has been created in many places where the temperature has been set very, very, very low. And if I have been, built up in an environment where I can see the temperatures are 18, 20, 21 as the best for health or best for me, or I'm comfortable with those temperatures, I'll keep on doing the same thing. I will never explore 27 degrees with a ceiling fan to make myself comfortable. So this is the kind of things which we need to see, and tell even our parents, not even to our kids. It is to generation up versus generation down as well. Whenever you are traveling with your senior people and all that, you might have find some places they throw the garbage out of the car. And I tell my parents not to do that, because probably during that time they have been seeing people doing the same thing. So if we teach or put up a kind of a situation where we are following a right approach of sustainable building or to anything, that is going to improve the social behavior. The moment we are improving the social behavior, that is definitely going to add up to the natural resources or saving of natural resources. Ashish sir, I think you are also wanted to add something to it, please.
No, I think somehow any effort that we talk in sustainability, whether it is for environment or economy, it has got an indirect impact on the social element automatically. Because even things like ozone depletion that we saw, it's real. The climate change is all real. These things are happening in front of our eyes, and we see that how is it impacting. If I talk about Delhi itself, the seasons have simply shifted. I don't know if someone realizes that or not, but the summer durations, which used to be from starting from April to June, is no more the same. Is actually changed. Rains used to be starting July and end in August or somewhere in September. It goes on till October also now. Winters actually start at the end of December and goes till March. So it's all changing. We're really seeing that change. Efforts in these areas are actually going to impact the social life automatically. The moment this ozone depletion thing, again I'll go back to that, and the reasons for it were known, and the protocols were set up. CFC was banned. It has really made changes also, because the depletion of ozone which has occurred years back is now coming back to its normal situation also. So things are improving, but the overall climate change actually takes years to get that impact, and take even more years to return back to its normalcy also. So we have to, it's a continuous process, and I think we all have to do our bit. wherever we want, wherever we can, we should just keep doing it, whether ourselves or our children, our family, whatever it is. None of my family members is allowed to throw waste out of the car or out of the place. I mean, that's simple discipline that we can follow.
True.
So it's all up to us.
Yeah, it starts from us only. Thank you, Gauravji. Thank you, Ashishji. So the next question, that is a very because Ashishji, you mentioned the landscaping, the people can do the masters in some landscaping also, because that field is also booming. So there is one question from a student: what are the some sustainable techniques that can be used in the landscaping?
Right. So this is very interesting because landscaping somehow, green, when you talk of green buildings, the first thing that a person who doesn't know about green buildings, he talks of landscape only. He talks about green means vegetation, and that's the synonym. But when you really look at sustainable techniques, I think landscape has a very important role to play, because the overall microclimate around the building, it actually gets impacted because of the landscape. The type of vegetation we are doing, is it, how much water does it consume, what is the benefit can it bring? We did a park in Delhi. It's for Delhi Metro. We did that park, and we were amazed to see the kind of elements that were actually brought in. We actually went for species which are mosquito repellent species in the park, so that when people are sitting there, they don't have the problem of mosquitoes and insects coming to them. Also, when we talk about the outdoor comfort, what we are also going now in projects is we define even the height of trees, the foliage of trees, the spacing between the trees, so that it can actually make more useful shadows to the outdoor spaces where people can actually walk and use those spaces. Generally, vegetation needs a lot of water for it to survive, but if you choose the species properly, which are more native, more drought tolerant or adaptive species to your region, I think that's also very crucial element to look into. So there are many things which can be done. I think it all goes to, again, type of project and the type of space where we are implementing it. But right from the proper planning of landscape, where do you put your grass, where do you put your shrubs, where do you put your outdoor spaces, I think it's all scientific now. With all the simulation tools available, we are able to make more effective landscape designs. We are now doing projects where outdoor comfort temperatures for the people walking outdoor can be reduced significantly, the feel like temperatures we're talking about. So, and that cannot be done without landscape. Landscape is a very important element to it.
True. Thank you so much, Ashishji, for enlightening with the answer, and that's very true. So the next question I would like to ask Gauravji, there's one question coming, like what is the impact that created in building design in this pandemic? So Gauravji, like what do you think, what happens in the building design due to this pandemic?
I think I will pass this question to Ashish.
To Ashish.
He is the best person to answer this question, not me, because I do just a bit in the building and he do the complete building. So I think he would be the right person to answer.
Wait, so I will take this question next in the next part. Then another question which is coming: why sustainability practices is not going on in mass in India as compared to the foreign countries? What are your take on this?
It takes time, as Ashish sir has said. It's a continuing process. It's between developed and underdevelopment countries. So we are in process of development. We are adding lot many things. We are adapting lot many things from outside India, forgetting our natural resources or our natural design, building, sustainability practices. So it's a changing process. We are starting now. It's going to take a bit of a time. As I give an example of Harit Kranti, it started in 80s. everybody started following blindly because they found the production is higher, and later they have started seeing the after effects of urea in the water, urea into our eating our food substances and all that. So but then they have realized, okay, now it's a time to go organic again. But the damage which has happened to the earth, Mother Earth, it was substantially. It's taking now many more years to wash out that urea which has been fed it into our Mother Earth. So it's the same thing. Now we have started speaking about, we are teaching the new generations, we are telling students about sustainability. A lot and lot buildings are coming up. I think before we started the session, we were discussing the same. Payal ma'am have also shared the example of Spectral Office, and that time everybody has to import the products from outside India. Now the products are available, people are aware. Now the wheel has started spinning. So it will take a little bit of a time before it gets its own momentum. It's our responsibility to speak about sustainable environment to everybody around us. The moment we start speaking around with our colleagues, with our parents, with our kids, with our friends, and all these social areas, definitely this momentum will be much faster comparatively. Am I? Yes, sir. Please, please.
So Gaurav, I will not agree with you fully on this, because I will now take your decades back examples for this question.
Yeah.
Because sustainability, as Dr. Jan also always mentioned, is not something is not new to us. Inherently, we are sustainable people, but somehow we started aping West into our day-to-day lives, and the way we think and the way we construct and design our buildings. And I'm happy that Western countries are adopting these concepts, and if we keep copying them, I think we will be sustainable ourselves again. It was a time in between when we lost track on the sustainability. That's what I personally feel. When we started looking at things in a different manner, when we were getting this whole globalization and modernization thing happening, we lost track of our sustainability. Our old buildings are still sustainable, the old people are still sustainable. It is our generation or the newer generations who have a different approach altogether. We don't want to walk, we want to drive. So that's a shift in culture which has happened, and I think it's all of us only who can make that change. So if we really look at the question again, why sustainability practices is not going on in mass in India as compared to foreign countries, I think we are in that transition right now, where we are facing the challenges because of these unsustainable practices, and we'll get back to it. If we even looking at the numbers, I think overall in the whole world, our country stands at number 2 right now as far as the green footprint is concerned. But yes, there's a long way to go. People have to adopt sustainability in their regular lives also. Once again, I would say not now, but once again.
I agree completely, and that's what I mentioned when I started answering this. We are adopting or started following which we see outside our plate. We found that West is doing better.
Yes.
They have a better life and all that. But one thing we are forgetting, that they are just few millions, and we are a big people, big crowd, which we are. So there they are not centralized in terms of anything. We are completely centralized. We have to decentralize ourselves. The moment we decentralizing, our metro city will have a breathing space. They have more of natural resources available for everybody. And this is why I always go back to decades back, that we were sustainable. We are still sustainable. The only thing is we are not adopting our thing. There is a phrase which we call the grass is always green on the other side. We are looking at Western areas as a more greener thing than us, but
And they are looking at us. They are adopting us.
Exactly. You can take an example of yoga. Yoga
Absolutely.
has been started in India. Now everybody is doing yoga. We are not doing yoga. The Ayurveda has started it in India, and there are many patents which has been done in Germany on Ayurveda. So this is something, which we are losing by looking at others, and that's a human tendency. That is a shift between the cultures and all. So it is a wheel which revolves very slowly, and end of the day we are going to get the same thing back by by others, not by ourselves, because we have not been handed over that baton that easily when we were growing up. So that's how the whole thing is coming in. So it is we who are going to increase the momentum. So it starts from us. If we add more and more things to it, we will definitely, reach to the level which we want to have, or which we had a long years back.
Thank you so much, Ashish ji. Thank you so much, Gaurav ji, for like enlightening us on the answer, because that's I know both the answers are like close to each other, but yes, we agree with that. Thank you so much. So I have a small announcement here. Like we will take a couple of more questions now, and before that, I request to all the attendees that whoever joined, you can, if you want to shout out for this, what are the learnings you are taking from this session, you can shout out on the social media. Take a snapshot of this session and put on the LinkedIn, other social media platform, or WhatsApp, Instagram story, and tag PJMT, our faculty, our panelists who have joined today, and me as well. D2O Learning, LPU. If you can just tag and shout out what you're learning, what you learned, something new today. So that's that will give a boost to us to organize the further sessions as well. So thank you so much. The next question that I would like to ask to Mr. Ashish, like which I left. What is the impact that created in building design during this pandemic?
Well, as I said, health and wellness, these two elements are taken up in a very serious manner in the building design. I remember the projects which our teams were designing before starting the pandemic. The designs were all done, and after the hit of COVID, a few months later, when the unlock one started happening and we went back to the designs and all, owners were wanting us to include measures in the designs which are more friendly to health and wellness, the sanitization. How do we handle the building elements in a more safe manner from the perspective of people's health, actually. So everything has to be touchless in the buildings. Everything has to be designed such that people are able to maintain the distances. So all of these elements have started coming into picture, and they are still continuing. A good thing is that some of the practices which were even though earlier were there but not being adopted, they have started being taken up in the projects. Touchless panels is good, whether COVID or not COVID, is always good. It helps people to stay safe. Designs also talking about having more ventilation in the buildings. Ventilation is always good. Of course, not in the kind of quality of air that we breathe outside. It's all polluted, but this brings in a discipline of taking outdoor air, treating it, and then using it. So these are some areas which have really improved in the buildings, and I'm happy that somewhere COVID has contributed in making buildings better.
Rightly mentioned that I think so. The points are very valid points. So we actually come off the next question. That this is the last question that we will take, and this question for both the panelists. Anyone can take the first, because this question was posted 2 times by Mr. Gunjan Swami. In the world, we are talking about green and sustainability at every platform, but parallelly, we can see everywhere surrounding nature is going down in front of our eyes. That we can see earthquake, tsunami, and floods are coming. Till when we will achieve that sustainable target about which everywhere is discussion going on from long time?
no one knows this answer till when, because there is no answer when will it end, or when will we reach the ideal situation, because the deterioration which has happened, and it's not only because of sustainability. See, the nature has its own way of doing things also. Sometimes we cannot say buildings are responsible for all the calamities, whether it's landslide or the earthquake or everything. There are many different elements, and I think what is important, which I said in my previous comment also, it's important to do our own bit to the maximum possible levels that we can, whether it is our building, whether it is our lifestyle, whether the way we drive. Everything matters when we talk of sustainability, and pollution is going up. So why can't we reduce our driving distances, the choice of travel, the choice of food, the choice of throwing waste? Everything matters. It's not only buildings who can do everything.
True.
That's my take on it. I think Gaurav can add.
Yeah, Gaurav,
So it's like both boon se ghada bharta hai. So we have to start putting that bit of drop into that particular pound to recover. It's a healing process of Mother Earth. It's going to take its own time. Nobody can actually say that this is going to happen. I can go back to the lockdown, the pandemic lockdown last year.
Absolutely.
That time you can see peacocks and other birds and other species which used to be in jungles. They were on roads because they didn't find any fare. They want to explore, come out and see, and you can see them. The weather was clear because we were not using any additional resources. There was no pollution. There was a better air. The oxygen level was good. So why it happened? Because we stopped doing misusing of the natural resources. I agree with Ashish that we need to change our own habits. We need to drive. We need to drive bicycles, which was used to be the previous communication ways. We need to walk to certain places, then drive. Again, I take an example of a family when a kid joins a college. What he gets, if you can afford, you give them a bike. That's where you start spoiling the next generations. I know it's affordable. I know it is available, but that is not sustainable. If we are going to a college by what we call as the transport, which is public transport available, I think we are not going to reduce our status level in the college. So that's where the whole concept lies in. Nobody knows this question. It is a kind of damage has been done. We are only responsible to try and make our possible ways to recover to our level and pass the baton to the next generation to make the recovery happening regularly. If we stop that recovery in between, again we'll go back 10, 15, 20 years. So we have to keep on doing our bit. We have to keep filling that pot with our drop of responsibility, and then certainly one day we will reach to a level when we can see that okay, now the mother nature has recovered. As ozone depletion, sir has given as an example, with taking certain step from last 20 years or 15 years, ozone depletion has started recovering. It has not come to the same level, but it has started recovering. Same thing is going to happen to the ambient temperatures, air qualities. Everything will come, but there's no certain time limit that it will be covered.
Rightly mentioned. I think so. This is perfectly right, because the time we cannot imagine when it will last. But yes, we have to do various things at our level. So the same, I would like to take the last question because the same person asked the question. Can traditional Indian sustainability techniques can be used in today contemporary era requirements? If yes, then how?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, these are being done also. As I said, if you, as an architecture student, if you really look at the passive strategies which used to be there in the old structures, those are being adopted. We cannot use it the same way that they were. For example, we cannot afford to have a 2 foot thick wall in the building today because we don't have that much of space, that luxury in the buildings. But if you insulate the building, insulate the walls, you can achieve the same effect. Courtyard, which was used to be there in most of the old structures, courtyards are being adopted in today's buildings also. Pre-cooling of air, so strategically locating water bodies in the areas where the winds are coming from. I think many strategies are there. We have to see how best we can utilize them in the given context and the size and scale of the projects. But yes, those are being adopted. And we call it remodeling the tradition, in our own language, because
Right.
we have such a rich heritage and such a rich traditions. If we can find ways to adopt in today's context, it's awesome.
Thank you, Ashish ji, for putting your thoughts on these questions. So as we have come to the last of the session, I would like to thank our panelists, Mr. Ashish and Mr. Gaurav, for taking your time and giving the answers of the students and the people who have joined today's sessions. So now I would like to call Ms. Payal Jain again for the vote of thanks and the closing remarks of the session.
Thank you, Anuj. It was a wonderful session. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Gaurav. A lot of learning for me also. Always good to attend these. I'm a student when it comes to this space. So thank you very much. Very, very
I have
interesting.
a suggestion. I think with these sessions, one very good opportunity that we really have is that since the session is attended by most of our new generation and the students that we have, I think every session should give at least one habit to the students, a sustainable habit or a green habit that they can adopt in their daily lives.
It's a
We
great
should think
idea.
about
Please feel
because
free to.
sustainability starts from all of us. Why can't we, just like, for example, I think we talked about in the initial start of the session about 1 degree challenge. Everyone uses ACs today. Why can't everyone take that, just increase 1 degree temperature in your own homes, or maybe just save some water, anything, that will be really good to take. And I think we can move ahead with that.
I think that is fabulous. 1 degree challenge. That's what it should be. Gaurav started with that and you're ending with it. And I think that's what should we take home. I will certainly do it. And I'm hoping all our 110, whatever students we had, and Amrita, we'll ask your help to pass this message around to all the lovely professional institute students. I think it's a fantastic idea that Ashish has given us, and we all have to chip in for this. Only then there will be a difference on the planet.
Absolutely, ma'am. We will follow and will guide students also for the same. So we ensure that we are going to have this in our letters.
And thank you. We had a wonderful participation from your students, lots of questions, and I hope there'll be a lot more. We may come back and bother you, Gaurav and Ashish, for questions which come later.
Anytime, ma'am. Anytime.
Whenever you have the time, please reply. Thank you. And thank you, Anuj. Thank you. You've done a fabulous job as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. And thank you,
Thank you,
all the students.